Hi, welcome to Seaside Quilting Tutorials. Today's an exciting day. We're about to begin our 2023 Seaside Quilt Along. Last year we did a mystery quilt. It was a sampler blocks. Some of the same blocks will be used this year, but they're in a different size, so the cutting will be a little bit different. Now, let me take a minute to show you a picture. The ones of you that are in our group, on Facebook, we have a group. It's called Seaside Quilting. We also have our business page, which is Seaside Quilting Supplies, LLC. On the business page is where we will post fabrics that we're selling, things that are coming in that are new, etc., etc. And that's where our lives are available. And we have lives every Tuesday, sip and shop at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So, with that said, if you're not in our group, I recommend that you join our group, Seaside Quilting. Just go over there and there's like 3 questions, I think, for you to answer. If you don't answer the questions and agree to our rules, we won't accept you into the group. But it's simple. They're not hard questions. The rules are basically be kind to everybody, and we'll let you in so that you can join. And part of the reason why it's good to be a part of the group is because that's where you're going to be able to download the PDF files that will have all the cutting instructions for each of the blocks. It will have, I've already posted the yardage. I've posted pictures, different colorings of the quilt for you to be able to see it different ways. I posted a coloring page, so if you would like to be able to take and print out a sample of what I've done so you can see where the colors would go, and then use colored pencil or markers and color in yourself so that you can see how your colors would work together. Some people like to do that, so I've made that available. Now, each week when I release a block, there will be a tutorial. I'll go over how the block is put together. You'll have your cutting instructions. They'll be posted in both PDF and Word format. If you want to be able to view them, you need either Word or you need a PDF reader. They're free. There's expensive ones, you don't need them. There are free ones that you can download either to your computer, your tablet, or your phone. And also on your phone, if you go, depending on if you have an Android or an Apple phone, you just go to wherever you get your apps from and search Word or search PDF. Word is free on phones, so you can download it, and for tablets. PDF readers, there are free ones that you can download for either your phone, tablet, or your computer. Also, Chrome, you can download an extension that makes it possible for you to open a PDF file right in Chrome. Now, I know some people do not understand how all that works. Maybe there's someone that can help you to do that so that you would be able to download the instructions. I'll go over some of the sizes as I'm teaching the tutorial for those that aren't in the group and are just watching this on YouTube. But it's nice to be able to download the instructions and have them sitting near you when you're cutting and whatnot, or at least for me. And even though I'm the one who puts them into these designs into software and creates them and whatnot, I still print them out because it makes it easier for me to have at my cutting desk and at my sewing table. So today I will be releasing, in case you're interested, you don't have to pre-cut. the sashings. So let me explain. The sashings in here are a little bit different. And some people are feeling that this is a complicated pattern. It's really, really not. The nice thing about it is that your sashings aren't just straight where you have to line them all up. And if you get them off, then it looks awkward. The nice thing about this is that your sashings are here. And they just vary with each block how they're added on. But it's so simple. So when you go to put each of your blocks together, if they're not exactly perfect, no one's going to see that because of the way that the sashings are. It just really makes it really nice, but it makes it look complicated. So when someone sees your quilt, they're going to see this beautiful, gorgeous quilt that was really easy to make. I will be going over how to apply your sashings after we've made each block, each tutorial. So you'll be able to see. So I've already made a sheet that I'm going, like I said, I'm going to be uploading it today. I've based this on 6 colors. I've got my main color here and through here that's all one color. So this takes a little more fabric. There is a yardage sheet that you can download based on the 6 colors. And I used my darker color for the sashing and for the inner border and the cornerstones. And then there are 4 colors that I'm using within the blocks themselves. You could just use 3 colors if you want in the blocks and not 4. It's really all up to what you want to do. One of the pictures that I created, I had used what the border color within the block, so it made it 5 colors. So your yardage will vary just a little bit, but you could just add those 2 colors together off the yardage sheet, and you'll know how much you're going to need for that. So today I'm going to be posting. This is the strip cutout sheet. I want to explain these a little bit because I'm not typing out, you know, cut this much, subcut this much. Because some people will want to do this as a scrappy quilt, which is perfectly great. It'll look beautiful. So you could do your borders, your main sashing, and your one color, and then you could do all your 10-inch blocks scrappy. So they'll be 10-inch finished, but 10.5-inch unfinished. Once you add the sashings, it makes the block 10 inches. Once those are added, the block will be 16.5 inches unfinished. And as they're, that's with the sashings added to them. And I'll be going over that more as we do each block. So just get a little bit closer. You'll see in this in the cutout sheets where it gives you the measurement of the length of the piece and the width of the piece. And it gives you the color that I'm using. This will help you to go by the diagram that I'm printing with the color, the purple variation of it, which is included with the cutout sheet for your strips. So this will tell you the color that I'm using, which is your outer border and some of your inner sashings here. And it tells you what size width and what side width, what side length. And it will tell you how many of those need to be cut. Now, as I was putting these together, when I'm taking them out of my software, they're individual sheets, and I have to pull the components from each sheet onto another sheet so that I can combine them. And in doing so, this one spot printed above here, I could not get it to move, so it lined up. So your first strip, you're going to cut 24, your next one 12, that one 12, and so forth. So it tells you each strip and what letter that strip is going down through. And as we're putting them together, I'll be telling you which strip we're using in what spot. So this sheet will help you in that. And so this is the yardage sheet that I had posted previously. In our group, if you look at the top, there's a bar. And on that bar, it says it depends on if you're looking on your phone or if you're looking on your computer or tablet. I don't know why they changed the wording on them, but there's a bar that says something like discussion, media, a couple of other things, and files. All of these will be posted, they'll be uploaded into the files tab. Sometimes, depending on what you're using and how big your screen is, you have to scroll that bar over till you see files. Click on files, and then all the files are there that are going to go with this, along with several other tutorials that I've uploaded into there. So you just click on the one that you want, whether it be PDF or Word, download it, open it, and you'll have your instructions. Okay, so I've already pre-cut all of my strips. I'm going to go over that in just a moment, but I wanted to talk to you about preparing. Before you cut your fabric, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you starch and press your fabrics, even if it's a batik, okay? So with a batik, I always just starch them one time. But if I'm using a different fabric, the batiks are a little bit stiffer, a little firmer, denser weaved. So they stay in shape really nice when you're sewing. But if you take a different fabric, whether it's Wilmington Prints, Hoffman, Kaufman, so many brands out there. If you're taking one of those and you're using it with a batik, and there's no problem ever with using batiks with other fabrics. I know that there are people that believe that there's a difference. I've been doing this for years. I've never had a problem combining them. The one thing that you do want to do is stiffen up the fabric that is going to be a little flimsier in movement. I usually will starch, if I'm going to use this with a batik, I will starch it 2 to 3 times to stiffen it up to the same stiffness as the batik. When it washes all that out, and it softens the quilt. The more that you use a quilt, the more I call it loving the quilt. It becomes softer, whether it's a batik or not a batik. They become like those old quilts that we're used to that Grandma had that were nice and soft and cuddly. Now, most of my fabrics, I fold them. I just fold them around a ruler. I don't use any cardboard. Don't need it. Just ends up taking up extra space. I just wrap them around a 6-inch wide ruler, and they go up on my shelf nice and neat like a book. But it creates a fold. No matter what you do, there's a fold at the top here. There's a fold, creases as they go through because they've been sitting up on my shelf pressed against each other. That's one reason why we need to press our fabric. And I would like to tell you that my fabric immediately gets folded and stacked on my shelves. I don't have enough room. I have too much fabric for my shelving. So sometimes when it, and I just don't have enough time, sometimes it just takes up a lot of time to fold up my fabric. So sometimes it just gets set on a shelf. Often when we open up a fabric that's been sitting for a while, or even when it's come in the mail, you'll have folds and creases in it like this. If you don't press those out and have your fabric nice and neat, when you go to cut, these folds shift your fabric. and change your cutting, which changes the sizes of the pieces that you cut out. So you may measure it at 2.5 inches, and then when you go to sew it, you know, 2.5 inches of this may not match up to 2.5 inches of one that's already, you know, not wrinkled. Okay. So you want to pay attention to that. It's really, really important. So then people ask me, well, what starch do you use? Now, when I'm quilting, sometimes I will use a heavy starch in order to stiffen all my fabric so that it's nice and smooth going through my long arm. I have a sit-down long arm. The only thing that I don't like about using this when I'm going to be sewing is that it crystallizes a little bit. And I don't care what brand you get, they all crystallize a little bit. And the more that you spray on, the more crystals that you get on the fabric. And then you have to brush it all off, and it's kind of a pain. I rarely ever use this. I do have it on hand because there are times when a customer will send me a quilt to be quilted. And if it has an area that isn't as tight in, it's a little floppier piece of a block, I will spray this on and steam it until I can stiffen it up enough so that I don't end up with folds in the fabric when I'm long arming it. So it's one of the reasons why I have this on hand. And I don't use Tyrial in my quilting or in my sewing. I use that for embroidery. And I use that when I'm stiffening up a knit fabric. However, if I'm making a t-shirt quilt, I do use Tyrial in the t-shirt fabric to stiffen it more, because knits stretch a lot more. And so I do stiffen those up quite a lot. So I will use Tyrial for that. And I use it in my embroidery to really stiffen a t-shirt or a knitted product so that it doesn't stretch. Excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold and my allergies are acting up a little bit, so I have a little bit of a cough and congestion. What I like the most is Best Press. Probably, I don't know if the wording's going to show up well or if it's going to be backwards, but I like Best Press. There are many different scents, and you can even get it unscented if scents bother you. If I'm doing a quilt for someone that it bothers them, I use the unscented. And I always inform people that I have used starch in their quilt, and let them know because some people, it may irritate their skin, so it will need to be washed as soon as they get it. But I let them know that I'm using it. We do carry Best Press at Seaside Quilting Supplies. And I'm not sure which scents we have available, but we do have them available. So like I said, this is my primary, most commonly used. I have several different scents just because I like a variety. And so like I said, on batiks, I have spritzer bottles. We have those available as well. So if you need a mister, let us know. We have several available. Some have little cute things on them, and other ones are just plain. And the Best Press is nice on a batik. I just spritz it once, press it, and keep going through however much yardage I'm going through. For the other types of fabrics, if I'm using it with a batik, if I'm using all Wilmington prints or all Hoffman, all that type of a fabric, I only starch them one time, each one of them, because they'll be equally balanced. But if I'm using one of them with a batik, I will starch them 2 to 3 times to stiffen them to the same feeling as the batik. That's just so that while I'm sewing it, it will sew evenly as I'm sewing it. And one won't stretch a little more than the other. Anyways, that's that. I did a whole video that I posted quite a while back on YouTube about starch and so forth. So I'm not going to go too extensive into that. The other thing that I want to give everybody a heads up on is that when I'm designing a quilt, I just put in the blocks that I want to use, or I draw the blocks that I want to create. And then my software, I can spit out the sheets that tell me what size to cut, and I just cut it. I'm not a professional designer by any means. I have software that I just stick everything in and it spits out the information to me, and I go and make the quilt. In doing so, I did not realize that making a 10-inch block meant that we were going to be cutting in eighths. So you're going to get a little bit of practice in using eighths on your ruler. What do I mean by that? For new quilters, and it's not hard. It really isn't. It's just, if you're used to cutting by 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, whole inch, 3/4, whatever, it's just what you're used to. So this might step you a little bit out of your comfort zone. That's okay. Let's do that this year. Let's do something that is a little more uncomfortable. It's all right. So let me explain to you, and I'm going to go over this again and again as we're doing the blocks to remind you how to cut. Make sure I have this up straight. You want to, as you're cutting, you're going to want to make sure that your ruler is up straight and not upside down. Because if you have it upside down, you may not be measuring properly. So you will see, and this is a Creative Grids ruler. We do carry them in different sizes. I love them for one thing because they have these spots on them, and it's hard to see on camera, but it has these little circles that have like a grit to the back of them, and it helps so that your ruler doesn't slide and shift while you're cutting, because that's always a pain if you're trying to cut. So you'll see these markings on the ruler, and you have your whole inch marks, and they're numbered. Then you have your 1/4 inch, your 1/2 inch, your 3/4 inch, and your whole inch again. These little tinier lines in between, these are all eighths. So if I say that I need to cut something 1 1/8, it will be 1 mark past the number 1 line. If it's 3/8, you're just going to count 1, 2, 3 little lines. That makes 3/8, and that's where you're going to line it up and cut at. There's a few that will be I think it was 3 7/8. So you just go to your number 3 and you'll just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 is always 1 line before the next whole mark. So it makes it easy to line it up there. Some people like to put, if you're going to be cutting several pieces the same size at 7/8, say 3 7/8. Some people like to put a little piece of painter's tape next to the marking it just makes it so you can focus faster to that line. There are a few pieces. I cut out 6 blocks yesterday ahead of time so that I can film each block ahead of time and have them ready to go each week for you. In doing so, there are some that are 4 1/8, so that's just 1 mark at past the 4. There's some that are 3 7/8, and so forth. They're not hard to cut out, and I will go over this a little more as we're going through each block to remind you. The rule of thumb is always, always, always check your measurement twice, sometimes 3 times. If you're unsure, make sure that your line down here is up against the bottom of the fabric, and make sure that this, you know, your lines going up and down are even on the sides of that fabric for your, so when you make your cut, it will be nice and even. Adjust your ruler if you need to. Go slow when you're cutting the eighths, and just always check to make sure what you're cutting, the size of it. Now, I was cutting out my strips the other day. I have extra of all of the yardage that I'm using, so I'm not overly concerned. But I did make a mistake, and I made it twice, and it was silly because it wasn't even an eighth measurement. It was a half measurement, but I kept cutting the piece 10.5 inches instead of 12.5 inches. I don't know why. I just had it stuck in my head. And even though I had looked at my paper, I knew exactly before I cut what I was supposed to cut. I did check my measurement twice, but I still cut it wrong twice. It happens. I've been sick the week before. This week, I'm starting to get better, but sometimes I just have a little bit of brain fog. So don't do what I do. Do what I say, maybe. And check twice, check 3 times. The last time I made that cut, I checked it 3-4 times. I kept looking at my paper, looking back at my ruler, and I was like, okay, so I have it right this time. So I have them all cut out, and I'm ready to go. So the other thing that I quickly want to show you before I let you go, I'm really so excited to get started on this. And I'm going to be filming the first block ahead of time. It will be released on April 1st. It might actually be released, shh, don't tell anybody, but it might get released Friday at midnight, because I'm going to be filming that today. I want to have some blocks done in advance so that each Friday, so the first one comes out, so you'll have it for Saturday. And it happens to be on April Fool's Day. I didn't really plan it that way. It's just how timing worked out. I wanted to give everybody an advance notice that we were doing another quilt along this year, and give you a little bit of time to think about your yardage. And some of you may not have yet. So don't feel pressured. These are going to be uploaded to YouTube. They're going to stay on YouTube. So you don't have to start with us. You can start after you see how the blocks are going together. It might take the first couple, 3 blocks, and then you go, oh, okay, that doesn't look as bad as I thought, and I'd like to try it. Even if you don't do all the sashings. So here's another thing. Even if you don't want to do all the sashings and do what people are thinking are the complicated part. If I can grab my paper here. Each one of these like this block, this block, this block, this block, this block. If you took away the sashing around it, they're 10.5 inches unfinished. You could just do the blocks with us and put those together however you want. You don't have to do the fancy sashing around. It's really up to you. I'm just trying to provide something different this year. Instead of your same old, make a bunch of blocks, stick them together, blah, blah, blah. I want something, you know, that will look a little bit nicer for you. But if you are just learning and this is looking complicated to you, you can just do the 10.5 inch blocks with us. And you'll learn some new blocks. So don't feel pressured. You may want to wait until the whole thing's done and you have all your sheets and you have all the videos available to you. The nice thing about the tutorial videos is that you can pause them, you can rewind them, you can skip forward if you've already watched part of it. So that's available to you, and it makes it a lot easier. I learn much easier on YouTube than I sometimes do in person when I go to a class. So with that said, I'm going to move the camera a little bit because I want to show you something with the sashings. Okay, so I have all my sashings. My lighting's not overly great. I need to improve my lighting over here. But I just wanted to show you, if I take my sheet and I have all my little sashings all pre-cut, I'm doing it all in teals. I put a whole bunch of colors together. My room was a mess because I had blues, I had teals, I had purples, I had pinks, I had fall colors, Christmas colors, all strewn out on every table in my room, trying to decide on colors. And each one, I had 7 colors pulled out together that I thought went well together. I took pictures of them all, and I even sent them to Barb and Mary. I was like, help me, I'm struggling because so many of them look good to me. But this is the one that popped the most. There was one other color variation that popped really well that I may actually make it 2 of these and make one in the blues, because the blues are absolutely striking. And it's my other coloration is using the cobalt belly chops with some other cobalt and black and other colors that it just is striking. But this one really pops, so I'm going with it. Okay, so if I look at my chart here, it will show that it's going to use one of these pieces of sashing, one of these pieces of sashing, and then the wider sashing will go here. These 3 will get sewn together in a row. Okay? Then for my next sashing, it has me putting, oh, wait a minute. Then it has the long sashing. This will get sewn to that. Now, this won't be longer because these will take up the 1/4 inch in between. But this is your next piece that goes on. Then, for the last row, we will have one of, let me move these up just a little bit. Get the camera over here a little bit. So then, these 3 sashings will get sewn together, 1, 2, 3, and then your block will go on this row. So you'll have 3 separate rows. You'll have this row, you'll have this piece, you'll have these 3 together, and you will have sewn your block on. And then all 3 rows get sewn together to make up your quilt. For the next block, your block goes up in that corner there. So you'll have your 3 sashings up here, your block over here. Let me see. Then you have your long piece here. And then you have your 2 sashings that go like this, and this sashing here. So this will be 1 row here. This will be a row. And then these 3 sashings with your block sewn across will be your 3rd row. And then we will sew all of our 3 rows together. I don't have any blocks done ahead of time to show you, but that's how simple it is. These are just getting shifted where they're located on the quilt. They're just going to be 3 rows. So each week we will make our block. We will add these 3 sashings to one side or the other of that block. You'll have your long sashing piece that will go between, and then you'll have this row every single week. And it just changes where they go. So the 3rd week, we're back to the same sashing alignment as the 1st week. And then it switches on the 2nd half, and then on this row here, and then down here is exactly as the same up here. It's really that simple. And I'm not sure if I'm making it sound simple enough, but really each block is a segment of 3 rows and our block, our 10.5 inch block. And then we add our sashings. Each week, it's that simple. After 3 weeks, we'll have 3 blocks that we will be able to sew together in one row. And then the next 3 weeks, we'll have our next 3 blocks and so forth and so on. There's a total of 12 blocks. And when we're done with all of our blocks, we'll add our borders and our cornerstones. And I'll be going over all of that with you. So anyways, I'm excited. I can't wait. It's going to be a fun time. I'm really hoping that several of you will join in, even if you don't do it right away, like I said. Join in later. It's okay. You don't have to start on day 1. You don't have to start even the first week or the second week or the third week. You can wait until this winter if you want to do it, but they'll be available for you. So if you're watching us on YouTube right now, subscribe, please, if you haven't subscribed yet. That way, and then there's like a little bell there. Click on that little bell, change notifications to all, and then each week when a block gets released, you'll get a notification to let you know that one of our new blocks, or some of my other tutorials, I'll be doing other tutorials periodically. This is my priority right now. But there's some other tutorials on there that are helpful, especially for new sewers. So take a look, see what's there. Last year's sew along is all available. I think it's under the player list of sampler quilt. So go ahead and do that. And in the meantime, I'm going to start up with the first block. So I'll have that ready for Saturday for you. I'm going to post this today. You'll have your strips that if you want to pre-cut, some people like to pre-cut everything and have it ready. I have a drawer that's just for the project that I'm working on. So when I pre-cut things, I can stick them all in that drawer. You could use plastic totes, whatever your form is. Or you can cut the strips that you need for the sashing each week with cutting out your block. It's just however your preference is. You don't have to do it my way. You can do it your own way. The other thing, just before I go, well, I'll wait. I'll tell you about that on the first block when we're sewing it. So anyways, happy sewing. Please stop by and see how we're doing on the 2023. I think that if you take a chance at it, I think you'll really enjoy it. So I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.